Hello there! Welcome to the new series of our e-learning. Today, we are going to talk about editorial. But before anything else, let's first define what is an editorial. An editorial basically is an article that presents the newspaper's opinion on an issue. It reflects the majority vote of the editorial board, the governing body of the newspaper made up of editors and business managers. In other words, an editorial is the official stand of the paper on a relevant development or issue. It is a personal commentary written by the editor who commends or gives the newspaper, or the news written by the editor who commends or gives the newspaper's or the staff's opinion about various aspects of an issue which is of interest and importance to the public. Meaning, it involves a critical interpretation of significant, usually contemporary events so that the readers will be informed, influenced, or entertained. To note, it is the stand of the paper, not of an individual editors. That is why it is considered as the soul of the paper. According to William Allen White, bitterness, bias, and fear have no place in an editorial. They make for weakness no matter how much they bluster. Therefore, editorial reflects the thinking, philosophy, and morality of the management. It also shows the kind of moral compass of the paper, and of course, projects the principle and integrity of the organization. That is why it is called the paper's conscience. Now, what are the characteristics of a good editorial writer? If you wanted to be a writer, you must have brain, meaning you know almost everything. In other words, you should know anything under the sun. A good editorial writer also has a good comprehension. He also good at analysis. Basically, a writer for this should have a wide or must be a wide reader, a critical thinker, objective, and good writer. How about the characteristic of a good editorial piece? Redrick gives 3 qualities of a good editorial. First is interest, meaning it should arouse interest to public. What are the issues that needs to be tackled even from a simple commoner? The second is brevity. Presents facts and not mere opinion. It also presents only one idea and avoid wordiness. And lastly, force. Must have clearness of style and has moral purpose and sound reasoning. Now let's proceed to the process of editorial writing. But before we go on with the editorial writing proper, let's have the things that you should do before the writing. First is read. You cannot give what you don't have. So you always have to read to expand knowledge, to solicit resources, and to have a good and correct information. Second is research. Try to look for solutions. Try to look for resources. Try to deepen a certain issue to give accurateness. And lastly, practice. In practice, you have to list down your facts, organize information, and you should do an outline. Now let's go over with the different parts of the editorial. First, we have the title. The title should be striking enough to arouse the reader's interest. It may also give the gist of the content. Example: Erroneous Textbooks, a bitter pill to our ailing education. Does it get your interest? Yes, basically. Now let's proceed with the lead. We have different types of lead in editorial writing. We have emphatic statement or maxim, remarks about the topic or person, narration, an order. It can be a question. It can also be a quotation, a prophecy, a reaction, and the most important, the news peg. Remember that a lead should always contain the issue or the news peg. Of course, with the additional of the reaction. The newspaper stand should be established immediately in the beginning paragraph by giving its reaction to the issue or news peg. The absence of the reaction to an issue makes the article not an editorial but just an essay. An introduction comes in different forms like thought-provoking question, a quotation, or the examples of lead that I have mentioned. Now let me give you an example of a powerful lead. The expose made by Dr. Antonio Calipe, academic supervisors in a private Marian school in Quezon City, that some of the textbooks used by students are erroneous, created a gigantic tremor that rocks our academe. Can you find the news peg? Basically, it is a news peg. But knowing that the expose made by Dr. Antonio Calipe, academic supervisor in a private Marian school in Quezon City, that some of the textbook used by the student are erroneous is the news, or the peg, while created a gigantic tremor that rocks our academe is the reaction from the news. That's why it's called the news peg. Now let's proceed with the body. The body is one of the most important part of an editorial, because in this part, you are going to arrange the facts and arguments. You also have to cite data and statistics. Basically, you need to present the factual details to bolster the opinions or the principle of the newspaper on a given issue. Arguments as well should be arranged from the most significant to the least significant ones. Now let's proceed to the last one, which is the conclusion. Conclusion must drive home the most important message. It should be impactful, and of course remember that the conclusion is the most important part of your editorial because it presents a solution, plea, advice, commend, thought-provoking questions, forecast possible effects, and quotation relevant to the subject, or just a summary. Let me give you an example of a conclusion. The authors, as well as the concerned authorities who are tasked to evaluate these books, are guilty of thwarting facts, injecting the wrong medication into the minds of the students. They should be given the dose of their own medicine. Now let me give you the different types of editorials. The kind of editorial to be written depends upon the purpose of the writer, whether to inform, interpret, criticize, commend, argue, or entertain. The number one type of editorial is the editorial of information. It seeks to give information on facts unknown to the reader. It restates the facts of news stories or adds other facts with minimum explanation. The second one is editorial of an interpretation. It explains the significance or meaning of a news event, current idea, condition, or situation, theory, or hypothesis. The writer doesn't argue nor criticize, but merely presents both sides of an issue and leave the judgment to the reader. The third one is the editorial of criticism. It points out the good or the bad features of a problem or situation mentioned in the news. Its purpose is to influence the reader. It suggests a solution at the end. The fourth one is the editorial of commendation, appreciation, or tribute. It praises, commends, or pays tribute to the person or organization that has performed some worthwhile projects or deeds, or accomplishments. The fifth one is the editorial of argumentation. This is oftentimes called editorial of persuasion. The editor argues in order to convince or persuade the readers to accept his stance on an issue. The sixth one is editorial of entertainment. It involves a smile, a chuckle, laughter, while suggesting truth. Its main aim is to entertain. Number 7 is mood editorial. It presents a philosophy rather than an argument or an explanation. Oftentimes, the subject matter is nature or emotion. And lastly, number 8 is the special occasion. It explains the significance of a special day or occasion, just like significance of Christmas. And that's the end of our discussion for editorial writing. Now, to give you the sum up of our lesson today, let me give you the perfect structure in writing your editorial piece. Let's start with title. Remember that in making your title, it should be meaty, concise, and striking. Second is the introduction. In your introduction, don't ever forget to give the issue or the news bag. Give the current situation or the current issue plus the opinion of the body. And of course, it involves your opinion. But it doesn't mean that it's your opinion alone, but the opinion of the body. Third is the body, wherein you need to give or present the arguments. Don't ever forget to give the pros and the cons. After which, give the supporting arguments, data, and quotation or statistics to support your information. And lastly, the conclusion. Remember that the conclusion is the most important part of the editorial. Give your final argument, your summation. You can also offer solutions or alternative modes of action, giving a challenge or a rhetorical question or even a call to action. So, I believe and I hope that you're able to learn something from our lesson for today. For your final output, here are the topics that you are going to write in your editorial writing. Those surnames that start from letter A to E, your topic for your editorial writing is coronavirus in general. Surnames that start with letter F to J, your topic is corruption amidst pandemic. Surnames starting from letter K to O, your topic is Masbate's power supply. For surnames starting letter P to T, your topic is modular distance learning. And from U to Z, your topic is online learning. Good luck on your final output. Don't forget to apply all the details that I have mentioned. Congratulations in advance!